Hey everybody, welcome to the third episode and second review for Brawlers and Scholars. Today we're going to review Thunderbolts. I'm Ryan. And
I'm
this is
Steve-O.
and I'm super excited to talk about this because it's been a busy week, a very hectic week, and I really like this movie, so I'm excited to talk about it. We were
As am
both
I.
we were both really excited, so much so we were going to do that expectations video before seeing the movie, release that, and then release the review after. But life and work happened, and we didn't get to do that. So we're going to talk about our expectations, give a quick summary of our rating, for lack of a better term, and then we'll give a spoiler warning, and we're going to go into the details of our review. So for me to start, I got very hopeful for this movie because of the last two trailers. The first one, the second to last one. So the first one that got me excited was the one that had, and now I'm blanking on the song. Nothing's Gonna Stop Us by I can't remember who, but that gave me major Guardians of the Galaxy vibes.
Mhm.
Group of misfits teaming up, talking smack to each other, having fun, and being heroes.
Mm-hmm.
I really got excited. And then the last trailer came out with Queens Under Pressure, and that was a much darker trailer, much more serious and mature. And that gave me Guardians of the Three vibes because that was the most mature and dark Guardians out of that trilogy. But after that, I started wondering, do they know this movie sucks and that Guardians of the Galaxy, the trilogy, was really good? And are they just trying to deceive us into, oh, this is Guardians of the Galaxy on Earth, come see this movie, but it's going to be terrible. So I was super, super hopeful, but also kind of worried. But at least from where I'm sitting, I can say, well, I was wrong on it being a Guardians of the Galaxy kind of movie. It was really good. It's um, it's the most fun I've had since Guardians of the Galaxy 3, um, as far as all the movies Marvel's released.
So yeah, I'm gonna add to that. Marvel's history has not been pretty good up to this point, as most people can agree. Ever since post Endgame, the movies and the TV shows have been falling off a cliff. So my expectations were pretty low, even after seeing the trailers. We've all seen trailers cut just right, and it just looks great. And then you see the final product, and you're like, well, that was the biggest letdown, and your morale is drained. So, like the trailer. So I expected pretty much what Ryan said. So because the trailers were giving a Suicide Squad meets Fast and Furious kind of a flick, which is a bunch of misfits get together or they're forced into weird circumstances and they have to get together and save the day. But overall, my expectations were super low, and because the track record has been hit or has been mainly miss more than hit. Thor came out and the trailers looked really good, and it just didn't hit. Um,
That movie definitely played on the. We have good music in the trailer, so naturally this will be a
yeah,
great movie.
good soundtrack, not really a good story. So yeah, I was thinking, all right, are they buttering us up? Because we watched Brave New World and the trailers look decent, and the film was just not it. So my expectations were I'm not going to get fooled, and therefore the bar was just at the lowest of the low. And I will say it exceeded my expectations.
Yeah. So to summarize my non-spoiler review, I can say, contrary to some of the other reviews I've seen, I thought the humor and the dark, mature, serious stuff did mesh really well. I felt like it was a good back and forth.
Yeah.
Most of the jokes I laughed at or chuckled at. I can't even think of one joke that they didn't try to be funny and that I didn't get at least a chuckle out of. Um, my wife didn't get to see it when we first saw it, and I really wanted to see it again, so I used that as an excuse. Hey, wife, this is really cool. Let's go watch it. And she liked it. She's a much harsher critic than I am, and she really liked it. So I watched it twice, and it was totally worth it. I was not disappointed with the second viewing. I will buy it on Blu-ray. How much I liked it. Like I said before, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 with the last Marvel movie I enjoyed, and this one again I enjoyed it more than Guardians 3. But on top of that, it did something that Marvel hasn't done for me since Spider-Man No Way Home. It got me excited for the next Marvel movie.
Yeah,
So that's the best thing I can do without spoilers. Is it's worth seeing in theaters. I will spend my money to own this. So that's how I can summarize it.
absolutely. What stood out that was really good?
Well, let me look at my notes real quick because I did try to write some. Here's the thing that really gave me one sentence. It made me care about all the characters. Now, some I cared about and some I didn't care about at all.
Yeah,
And by the end of the movie, I cared about all of them. I
yeah.
was down to see these guys again, and I wanted to see more of them interacting.
Very,
So,
very good point. I didn't even think about that. Yeah. Without getting into spoilers, and we will get into them soon, but yeah, I didn't really care about most of the characters going into it. I kind of had my favorites going in. I hope that guy lives. I don't really care if that person dies. And it there was a few neat plot twists that just were orchestrated just right. That just made it work out in the end.
very nice.
Yeah.
That all you got before we get into spoilers?
No, man. I'll say this: the characters were well written. They were the good and the bad, and everyone else in between. There was an intern in there that was um, helping out on the side, and even she had some character development, which was really neat. I wasn't expecting that at all. The story was enjoyable. The mid credits were it was
Cute.
yeah, it was cute. But the end credits gives you hope of what's to come, and that was pretty neat. The villain was an interesting one. One that doesn't pop up in the cartoons. I can't think of any other time.
Me neither.
So it wasn't your stereotypical Green Goblin or Mandarin that you may or may not know, or like Doctor or Mister Sinister that people have kind of heard of or not. This is someone like not even I've even was expecting or uh, really hoping to show up. We'll get into that soon, but it 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 gave the ability to boost the story and take it in a direction that you typically don't take a film like this. Um, the way the villain was overcome was very interesting. Uh, and I admit I was kind of scared by the villain. I will admit I know it's weird to say that on camera, but like it reminded me of me being 4 years old and seeing Snow White, and the old hag comes out, and the lightning flashes, and the the soundtrack at the time really brought me back into my 4-year old self, and I was kind of scared. Something I normally don't do at the theaters anymore.
The villain is very good, and it's good because it's subtle. It's not
Yes.
something Marvel's done a lot of, and
No.
I'd have to sit down and think if they've ever used this approach with a villain. I can't. They may have, but I can't think of one off the top of my head. And I'm saving most of my comments for the spoiler section on that. But it's funny because right before Thanos got on the scene, Marvel was criticized for its surface level villains. And this movie is obviously this villain's first appearance, but this was a very well written villain.
Hmm.
So one of the best Marvel ones.
Hmm. As far as the bad stuff goes, I can't really think of any. It was an enjoyable flick through and through. If I could throw in any sort of critique, it would be that we're not seeing any characters, uh, either heroes or civilians from the old films ever really show up. Stanley, as we know, has passed, so he's not showing up in films anymore. But there's not really any characters from any of the other projects that are showing up. So it's not really. anyway, that would be the only thing I would say is we don't really show or see any familiar faces.
And I don't have a lot of critiques. The one I have kind of goes into spoilers, so I'll save it for then.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us. If you would like to continue on, here's your spoiler warning. We are going to discuss the rest of the film. I'll let you start.
So I already said like it made me care about the characters, and that's really the main praise I have for it. John Walker from Falcon and Winter Soldier, he totally gets to stand up for himself and his
Yeah.
actions in Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Redemption.
There's a lot of banter between the characters, and if you look at it on a surface level, because I was pretty critical, I was looking at it with a critical eye. And I was like, are they trying to make John Walker the butt of all the jokes or all the woke jokes, I should say? And I will say no. He gives back as much banter as is thrown his way.
Yeah.
And there was one other thing I had about him. Oh, there were several times where they're arguing about what plan should we use, and John Walker will either make the plan and be right, or someone else will be like, "No, John, we're not going to do that," and then they're wrong. So John Walker, Bucky, Red Guardian's the goofball, and he is used as. But even he's not the butt of jokes. He's just the goofy. He's like Drax in that sense. He's not the butt of jokes, but he's the goofy dude. So they weren't sacrificing the male characters for the female characters. And just, I think John Walker got done so wrong in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and he gets done very well here. So I really enjoyed that. It was just a group of misfits talking smack, being funny, and beating up bad people. I'll save the finale stuff for after you, and I'll just give my one critique here. And maybe not one critique, because it's kind of a summary, but I would have liked the movie to be longer, especially toward the ending. The ending just kind of comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And I would have liked more of the characters interacting, and the intern that we were talking about to the bad guy to Valentina. She's the actual bad guy in the story. I would have kind of liked to know what happens to that intern at the end of it, because like she went through a really cool character arc, and then it's just like she's in the last scene before the credits roll, but it's like the end credits tell you what the Thunderbolts are doing, but I'm curious, like, well, what's that intern doing? Because she went through a lot to help him out, and we don't even know. But I really don't have a lot of critiques. I'm not trying to say this film is Captain America and the Winter Soldier or Avengers Infinity War level, because it's not. But
it's a step in the right direction.
Exactly, and I will rewatch this one. Like, it's going to be one of the ones I put on.
Yes, indeed. I'm going to talk about the bad guy. So the bad guy is basically this cosmic entity that the Sentry character, who's like a Superman type character, finds within himself. So the Sentry is a character is kind of like a what if Superman wasn't really the Boy Scout before he put on the Superman suit. It's what if Superman was a drug addict who has a really abusive home life and becomes a superhero. And the unstable part of Sentry was made manifest through this cosmic entity called the Void. And I'd like to touch on that because it's a really interesting thing. Everyone kind of has this duality. There's the good, the bad. Star Wars has the light side and the dark side. Christianity has God and the devil. It really touches on what good is and what evil is, and something that I don't really see in most films at all these days. This cosmic entity isn't one that envelops the sky over New York. It is one that it's found in the heart. It's really neat. And I kept on like elbowing you and my wife, and just like, this is some spiritual warfare level stuff. This is actually pretty neat. And I thought it was really neat how it brought me back again. I mean, this was kind of a time travel film for me. It is, I was I was brought back to when I was a teenager, back when I had hair a long time ago, and I had I'm not going to get into that. If you want to get into that, you can see my other YouTube channel, Fire and Glory. But uh, I experienced a very interesting thing and in my teenage years that I firmly to believe to be a demon. And this void character that was inside this all-powerful superhero's heart was saying every words that I would hear this demon say to me as a young teenager. And it's like taking me back. And I know we talked about this afterwards. I'm not going to tell, that's deep spoilers, but um, it really brings you back around to that evil that resides in the heart, and what do you do with it, and what can anyone do about it? Do you um, make it go away by thinking good thoughts, or what do you do when you just feel like you're all alone, even if you're around multiple people? How do you combat the solitude?
So this Bible verse just came to mind as you were talking about that. So I'm going to share it because I think it really encapsulated why I like this movie and why I started to care for these heroic characters. And I'm looking at Ecclesiastes 4:10. Not okay. Here's King James version. So we'll read that. For if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow, but woe to him that is alone when he falleth, for he hath not another to help him up. So
Amen.
Sentry, for those anyone watching the spoiler probably knows by now, Sentry's alter ego is Bob. So
Mm.
Sentry is like good Bob with superpowers, and Void is bad Bob with superpowers. And you learn throughout the movie that Bob had a pretty lonely life. Father was really abusive, and mother was, from what little we see, at least neglectful.
Mhm.
And he has no one. But by the end of the movie, all these misfits, and we call them misfits because they're kind of goofy, but all the heroes are essentially failures.
Mhm.
But all these failures come together to be Bob's companions.
Mhm.
And when Bob's about to fall as low as he can go, they're the ones who pull him back up. Which again is probably why this movie touched my heart and I'm so fond of it. Because we all love it when the Avengers are fighting, you know, Thanos army, Ultron army, Loki army, and then they fight the big boss and they win through teamwork. We all love that. We all love to see Superman save the universe. But there's this comic strip that I've never read comics much, never read a Superman comic. But if you Google Superman saves suicidal girl, there's a panel of Superman just saving a lone girl on a bridge. There's no cameras. It's not a big event like he's fighting Darkseid for the fate of the multiverse. It's just a good man who happens to be a superhero saving somebody. And that's what the Thunderbolts do in this movie. They're people, flawed people, damaged people.
Mhm.
Like they go in, when they go in to save Bob, they don't know if they're coming back out.
Yeah.
So not only are these superheroes saving someone in crisis, they're doing so at great personal risk,
Mhm.
which is, again, like that's not something Marvel I can remember ever doing. It's always like we're going to go battle the big CG army and then fight the big CGI villain,
Mhm.
and fun. I love those movies, but this movie was different. Looking at it totality, the execution was not as good as Infinity War or Winter Soldier. It wasn't. Um, but it still did hit the good beats, like how Steve would always do something to save Bucky.
Mhm.
This movie very much hit that.
Yeah.
And the scene where they do pull him back from being consumed by Void, the music is just
Oh my
fantastic.
gosh, the
Um,
score was perfect.
and to just get a little personal, I think most of us at one point have felt very alone with our darkness.
Yep.
Sometimes that's very clearly demonic, and sometimes it's just our lone psychology, I would argue.
Mhm.
But in those moments, I think we've all felt, hey, we really could use someone. We could use that companion that Solomon talks about. Um, I think this movie just gives people that kind of hope, like, because Bob had to go through his childhood and early adulthood not having those people, but he gets them.
Mhm.
And, like, at least from where I'm sitting, having dealt with darkness myself, I know God sent people. The people he sent were gifts from him. So, yeah, that ending really, really touched my heart, which is probably why it's going to be one I rewatch a bunch.
Yeah, I cried.
Manly tears, though.
Manly tears, certainly. Yeah. But yeah, we've all been there. We've all been in the dark. We've all thought, I don't need anybody else. Or why would anybody else want to be with me? Why would anybody else want to be around me? And this group of misfits, a really group of failures, get together.
Criminals and murderers.
Which is what the 12 disciples were in the beginning. Well, some of them were. But I like how you incorporated that.
Thank you.
Good Bible incorporation.
Hand to God, because that's not in my script.
Awesome. But it was about when you're faced with these challenges, what do you do? Who do you turn to? Do you turn inward and give up? Because it's so easy to just want to give up. It's so easy to just flog yourself and say, who would want to be in this trench with me? Can I share something?
Of course.
If you find yourself in that trench, and Lord, if you find yourself at the end of this video, know that Jesus is there with you in that trench. You are never alone. It cannot, the hand of God is never too far away from you. And since this isn't that channel, that's as far as I'll go. But
may I share? Because it
sure,
kind of tied into what he said. I shared something with someone today. People will fail. Even your friends, your family, Christians, we're definitely going to fail.
Amen.
Jesus will not. Amen. And it won't always feel like that. I can tell you that. Mm-hmm. But he won't, and he is there. And just tying it back to the movie, I want to make it clear, like the characters who save Bob from Void, they don't do it because they know if they save him, he can be a great superhero. Mm-hmm. They do it because it's the right thing. I would dare say they also probably do it because they've been in very similar situations. Yelena is the main character in this, and they're very clear with some of her sequences in the movie that she's been where Bob is. And again,
and no one had been there to save her.
Yes. So, and that's, I think that hits the nail on the head. They did what no one did for them, but they did unto Bob what they would have want someone to do to them.
Dude, amen.
So that's why this movie touched my heart very much so. Yeah. I don't think I realized until I started fully going in depth and talking about it, but even though it does get dark, it ends with a hopeful message, and that's the best kind of movie.
It does. And here's some other hope that it can bring. From a cinematical standpoint, it gave me hope that I hope the momentum that has been built up will carry into the Fantastic Four. And it better, because if Fantastic Four fails, we're in for a long winter again.
But this one was going to have Galactus, so yeah. I'm hopeful. We haven't seen on-screen Galactus, so yeah. I think that's all I got for it, partner.
That's all I got too, man.
Guys, we're grateful for y'all, and we're thankful for y'all. And there's nothing y'all can do about it. Tune in next time.